and this video is basically going to be the end of the series. It's not the end of this project, as you'll see towards the end of this video, but for as far as posting on YouTube, this is the end of this project. So what I had to do to start finishing up this arch was I had to put 45s on the ends because there's going to be trim that meets the corners. This is the problem with this arch that I had, was once it was all together, it's really hard to make those sorts of cuts, especially on a curved piece. So really what I did was I removed the bulk of it with my miter saw, and then I drew a 45 and I just kind of snuck up on that angle. I perfected this with an oscillating tool a little bit later, but essentially freehand, that's what I ended up with. So I just kind of put that up there, and then the trim would come later. At this point, I could start attaching the curved top. So you can see I had it braced with a ratchet strap, and there is an overhang on this because there is a little bit more molding to add to the top. So basically I have these two pieces of wood in the back that kind of signify where the wall would be. I could line this up with my offset based on the plans. I knew I had about an inch overhang to work with on this piece, and then I can mount that crown to the front of this, leaving that overhang. So this was a little tough because there's still a lot of tension in that piece of bent wood, and the crown's curved, so clamping it was a little bit difficult. I did have a little bit of spring back in the corners, but that ended up not mattering. And then once this was still wet, I just added some reinforcements on the inside. You're never going to see the inside of this, so it didn't have to be pretty. I basically just took the patterns I'd been using to build this, cut them into pieces, and just added them on the inside. Now this has a fairly large spacer in the back. It's nothing you're ever going to see. I was thinking of not even making it because I don't think it's really necessary, but I think it will come into play for installation. Mounting it to the cinder block wall will be an easy way to mount this on the front of it. I used cedar for this because I would have had to order more mahogany, and while they wanted this whole thing out of mahogany, I just didn't feel it was necessary to use mahogany for something you're never going to see. So I basically just made a box the size of the dimensions. I'm going to go through this very quickly because I've already shown you how I make these torsion boxes throughout this whole thing. This is the exact same thing. Like I said, I'm just using cedar, and I'm putting these two together. It doesn't have to be pretty. I actually use screws in this one because, like I said, it's going to be behind everything. You won't see it, and like I said, I'm assuming this is going to act as a mount on site. So that is basically what that looks like. This is about 4.5 inches because that is the depth of the niche where this whole thing is going. So you just plop that together, cut from my sides. Those are all of my parts. If you've been watching this series, I think I calculated it. I made 11 or 12 of these torsion boxes for this whole project. So if you've been watching this series, you've seen quite a few of these, which is why I'm going through it fairly quickly. This grade of cedar that they use for decking that you can get in home improvement stores is quite expensive, but cedar is really nice in that, as you saw when I gauged the board in my shop before I started making this, it stays relatively flat, especially for stuff that you can get at a home improvement store. So you can see the top of that is supposed to be 5/8 of an inch, but the wood I bent, because I split it in half because I thought it would be easier to bend, was only 5/16. So I knew I was going to add some trim, which is nice. It will hide that seam. So I just cut a scrap piece of wood, put a little bit of an angle on the back so that I had gluing surface against where it meets the crown, and then I glued that in place as well. I could sand it down, and now that front is officially finished. That's what the side looks like. You can see that the top of the curve is a little bowed. You'll see how I deal with that later. This is that cedar backer that's going back there, and like I said, you'll never see it. It actually sits on top of the flange I put in the back. That's what that looks like in place. When I get on site, I'm assuming I'm installing this. I haven't confirmed that. I honestly might not even use that if I don't find it necessary. But the nice thing about that cedar was, like I said, it kind of signifies the back of the wall. So now I could use it to make sure that this arch is meeting the back of the wall. So at this point I had to add my bottom into that curve. If you remember, I had already cut that with a router beforehand, and I have to account for that depth, which is 3/8 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch. So I have to cut this down to about 5.5. That worked out nicely because if you watch me bend this piece of wood, it got stuck in my steam box, so a chunk you could see right there was taken out of it. So I was able to remove that, and I could set this in that groove. There's also a little marred piece on the end, so I was able to slide this around and get rid of that as well. So that's what that looks like in place. There's that little bit of marred lumber when I was trying to hand saw it. And then once I had it in place, I can mark this because I'm going to have to cut this at an angle. That's what I'm going to do for the time being. I'm also going to have to account for the 5-degree angle on the cornice, but I will deal with that later. For the time being, I'm just putting the angle that matches the crown on there. I did this with a handsaw, just followed my line. Thin lumber like this I find really easy to saw pretty accurately through, so that's all I did. And then this fits into place, and you could see that angle matches the base of the crown, which will sit on top of the cornice. And I just tested this in place. It's not going to be accurate. It's going to be pushed a little forward because, like I said, I haven't accounted for that 5 degrees, but I wanted to make sure it was right. So now at this point I could start attaching all of these pieces. The bottom's still free floating. So what I decided to do was glue that in place and then put a bunch of pieces of plywood that will hold those two together. It's kind of like a very quick version of a torsion box. I didn't have enough material to make dados in this, but I think this will work quite well, and it will make the dimension uniform throughout the whole thing. The thing about steaming lumber is it sets on the form, but you could see that it kind of takes on a mind of its own sometimes. You really have to force it into place and shape it there. So those blocks will make sure that across the whole arch stays the same dimension. So then, like I said, I had to account for that 5 degrees in the cornice. So I have to cut a 5-degree angle starting from the front to the back so that this sits straight on there. Stuff like this, all this fine tuning, I'm showing you cutting it and then putting it in place. Usually stuff like this takes about at least 10 tries or so of I mark it, I cut it, and then I very slowly remove material until it's perfect. So that's kind of how I go about doing it. I don't film all of that. But if you're a weekend warrior or someone who wants to DIY stuff, I do want to make it known that those cuts are not always perfect the first time. There's usually quite a fair amount of fitting. And then that is that finished cut. You could see how it tapers inwards. So then I'm going to put a back on this, and like I said, the back side of this lumber was kind of flaring out from the steam. The front of it was attached to the crown, but the back of it wasn't attached to anything, so it was flaring out. So I'm going to make a backer on it, but I wanted to make sure I had that clamped where I wanted it before I made the backer. The backer is pretty simple. You can see I have a piece of rosin paper. That's great stuff to have around the shop. I use it for patterns all the time. I kind of dented it with my finger so I could get a line, and then I could make a pattern and then just route off my pattern and put that in place. Since this is just a backer, I don't need anything super thick, so I took a piece of mahogany and I cut it in half. So this is about 5/16 of an inch for the backer. And then, like I said, once I had my pattern, I could just place it on top of this mahogany and cut it out. So there is the pattern I made. With something like this, I just jigsawed this out. I went very slowly, followed my line. I got a pretty nice cut. Then I lightly sanded it and everything fit into place. I didn't bother making plywood templates. And now you can see that arch, that curve is across the whole way, which I want, because otherwise when I get to the ends, adding the old molding will be a nightmare. You could see without it being clamped in place just how far off that back flange would be. So I was happy that adding this backer kind of solved some of those issues. And then everything's glued in place on top of those plywood pieces. So now this is essentially an enclosed unit with these little edges showing. I added a cleat on the inside just to reinforce it a little bit. So then I have to add a piece of curved mahogany to the back so you don't see through to the cedar. The way I decided to do that was I used a rabbiting bit and I rabbited a little groove on the back side of this curve. I'm going to rabbit another groove on the back side of the cornice, and then I could cut a piece of wood that will fit in there. So there's my first groove. I'm going to do the same thing on the cornice. I did this so that it would be really hard, especially since I'm transporting this, to get that piece perfect and slide it into place. This way, the rabbet will give me a little bit of wiggle room if my piece in the back isn't perfect. So that is what the rabbet on the back of the cornice looks like. I squared up those edges. And then I had a piece of thin stock laying around, which fit in there perfectly. I rounded over the corners so it fit in there. And then what I could do is just put this in front, mark where it's going to go, and then I added a little bit of depth to it because of the rabbet, and then I could cut that out. So you could see how the rabbet, if I didn't cut this perfectly, it would still fit in there, but it will hide any mistakes essentially by doing it that way. Same thing, I just used the jigsaw. This didn't have to be perfect, and then I could pop that into place, and that closes off the back. Now obviously too, when this is installed, all this stuff is going to be permanently glued together, so it'll be that much stronger. So then the edges was a problem because I had actually texted the customer back in the beginning of September asking him how he wanted me to make the crown because it had to be cut. And the architect said it didn't have to be cut, which I was confused about because the plans don't show the sides and the cornice is on an angle. So I didn't see how to do that without making it on an angle. So I had to make more crown. I already had made crown for this, but I had to make more because it had to match the thickness of the front. I'm going to go through this very quickly because I've done this multiple times in here. This is a very simple S-curve, so it was just a rounded over front with a little bit of a divot in the back. And I figured I would just install it and show them what it would look like because I didn't understand how else to do this without cutting the crown on an angle. So that's basically what this is. I was very happy I made a long piece of this because I ended up needing a long piece of this because the way I did it was not right, which you will see. And you could see how the difference in, like I said, I had made this crown months ago thinking I could just get away with using regular crown. And that is what that looked like in place. You could see it was tapered on an angle. I sent it to the customer and he still told me it was wrong. So I found this image online that made more sense to me of how this whole thing will be done. Like I said, I'm not calling this a mistake on my part because there was no side view of on the plans, but basically the trim on the cornice on the bottom should have been mounted parallel to the ground, and then all the molding going up would be square instead of having to be cut on an angle. So that means I had to go and remove that piece of material. I was actually able to save this and reuse it, and then these are my 4 pieces of trim that I'm going to finish up this piece with. So that square one will match the front on the top. So that was a little bit of a pain. It was a lot of going back and forth because, like I said, the plans just didn't show how that was supposed to be done, but everything worked out. So you can see I just was able to use an oscillating tool and cut that trim off so I could save it. I could remount it so it's parallel to the ground, and then I could work my way up, adding all my pieces. I apologize, I know this is a terrible angle. I have another big piece in my shop at this point, so I kind of shoved this in the back thinking I was done with it, but I was not. And then I could add that piece on the top. I actually did this today on a Friday, which is when I do these, so it definitely looks a little sloppy right now. I'm gonna have to clean all this up, but for the sake of this video, this is the end of this series. I'm gonna have to clean all this up, sand it, and install it, but I don't know when that is actually going to happen. So this is kind of the finished product for now. I'll obviously either upload photos or a short once it's done.